Hey there, Legal Tea listeners. This is your host, Jenny Roselle. Welcome back for another episode of Legal Tea. Today's topic is a current trend, something going on in the current time that is pertinent to my little estate and elder law world. Now, today's topic is a very current trend and one that I actually got a specific request for. So on that topic, if you ever want me to dive into a topic on here, just email me at legalteapodcast@gmail.com. Or you're welcome to message me on any of our social channels like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, etc. Today's topic is on cryptocurrency and specifically inheriting it. Let's first start by talking about what cryptocurrency even is. I, for a very long time, avoided this topic like the plague. So if you're anything like me, sometimes a really basic foundation before we dive into specifics is helpful. To do so, I turned to a financial advisor that my office works with, Drew Fights with Migration Wealth Management, and I asked Drew to give me the scoop. I figured he'd be much more reliable than me spending way too many hours digging through the web and probably not even really know if what I'm reading is accurate. So let's dive in. As Drew shares, before we dive into what cryptocurrency even is, what even that word means, we need to first understand a term of art called blockchain. And side note, never heard of this word until Drew shared it with me. So look at me learning right with you all. Matt, CIO of Bitwise, explained blockchain like this at a recent conference that Drew attended. A blockchain is a database that is available everywhere, that everyone can see, that everyone believes is true, that updates instantly, that isn't controlled by a single person. End quote. Now, when I read that, I was like, what? What does that even mean? Essentially, as Drew stated, blockchain is, quote, a digital ledger made up of a bunch of computers throughout the world that record and validate transactions, end quote. Sounds sort of creepy, but hey, I'm 0% surprised that's happening. So cryptocurrency's foundation is much like this, much like blockchain technology. The next part of understanding cryptocurrency is something called keys. According to Drew, these keys are what allow transactions to occur. So there's something called a public key, and there's something called a private key. And Drew shared that he recently heard it described as this, and it helped me immensely when he shared this. A public key is sort of like your email address, and the private key is like your password. So if you ever want cryptocurrency, you share your public key, so like your email address, so whoever is sending you the cryptocurrency knows where in the world to send it. And if you want to transfer the cryptocurrency to someone else after that, you have to enter your private key, like your password, to transfer it to the other person's public key. Did you follow me? What happens if you lose your keys, right? Well, it's bad, like very, very bad. If you lose your private key and cannot recover it, it is gone. As Drew explains, because blockchain is decentralized, there's no customer service number you can call and be like, hey, I lost my private key. Can you help me out? Supposedly, there are stories out there where people have lost a lot of money because they can't find or don't know what their private key is, which means they have no access to the cryptocurrency. So I'm sure you're wondering, or at least I was, what is the difference between cryptocurrency and Bitcoin? Are they the same? Are they different? What's going on? So, according to Drew, thanks Drew for all your help with this. So, according to Drew, Bitcoin was the first successful and the largest cryptocurrency. So, Bitcoin is a type of cryptocurrency, but cryptocurrency is not always Bitcoin. You see? So the thing that got me on this whole cryptocurrency topic is I have a listener who is actually also a client that shared an article with me on Vox.com by Rebecca Hallwell dated March 11th, 2022, titled, "Inheriting Bitcoin is Harder Than It Sounds." A link to the article is in today's source links, if you care to take a look. I thought it was a very timely article, hence why we're talking about this topic on a current trends episode, because cryptocurrency seems to have been and continues to be quite the hot topic. Should you invest? Should you not? And I don't know the answer to that question, so I hope you're not banking on me to answer that question for you. It has not been until very recently until I started seeing clients with cryptocurrency, like Bitcoin, as part of their assets. So like I said earlier, until then, I sort of avoided doing the research like the plague. It just felt like foreign water. According to this cited article, cryptocurrency is here. As the article states, if you don't own cryptocurrency yourself, odds are you're related to someone who does. Some 16% of US adults say they've used crypto, and it feels as though these digital assets are everywhere now, from Super Bowl ads to Bachelor contestants' Instagram stories. End quote. They're so right. I totally remember watching the Super Bowl, and the amount of cryptocurrency ads I remember seeing was surprising. Wasn't there there was a commercial that had a QR code in the middle of the screen, and I think the commercial was totally silent, and so curiosity was killing me, so I quickly ran over to my TV and scanned the QR code, and it was some sort of crypto website. So one thing that is definitely pertinent to my little estate and elder law world is what in the heck happens to these crypto assets at your passing. That's where this handy dandy article on Vox.com, as well as some other articles I've pulled from that I've linked to this episode. One of those being from a website, rollcall.com, called Estate Planners Want to Keep the Crypt Out of Cryptocurrency by Stephen Harris. Love the title, Stephen. As most things in my little estate and elder law world, it seems to be quite dependent on whether someone has a plan or not for these cryptocurrencies. As Stephen explains in his article, unlike a traditional bank, which typically requires executors to produce an original death certificate and other documents to take control of accounts in the deceased owner's estate, cryptocurrency only requires the fiduciary to have the deceased owner's passcode for access, end quote. So what does that mean? As Rebecca's article shares, if someone does not have a plan, and more specifically, what that means is they have not shared the passcode, the private key, that could leave your heirs essentially locked out. Now, you remember how when I was explaining earlier about public keys and private keys, and I said there are stories about people losing all their cryptocurrency because they have lost or forgotten their private key, and there's not like a customer service setup to call? Yeah, here is an example of where things may slip through the cracks. So that private key passcode is super, super important not to lose, destroy, forget, etc. As Zachary Goldman, an attorney at Wilmer, Cutler, Pickering, Hale, and Dorr, perfectly states, if the executor does not know where the keys or passcode for assets held in a self-hosted wallet are stored, and the decedent hasn't left instructions, those funds are gone. End quote. So I'm sure you're wondering, okay, Jenny, If you're telling me that these private key passcodes are like the most important thing ever in cryptocurrency world, especially as it relates passing them down to your beneficiaries, what in the world are my options? Well, it's all a matter of setting the person up that is supposed to take over your affairs, like an executor, a trustee, your power of attorney. It's a matter of setting them up for success. You almost have to think creatively, like, what can I do now, right now, to ensure that person has access to this uber important private key passcode when I pass away? According to the rollcall.com article, some ideas that individuals who have cryptocurrency and incorporated it into their general estate planning have done are, first, provide their private key passcode to a fiduciary, someone reputable, someone trustworthy, like a bank or financial institution that is willing to take on the risk of holding on to your private key passcode for you. That way, they can provide it to the appropriate person after you pass away. Second, another idea that individuals have come up with is finding a way to safeguard them by placing the private key passcode in a safety deposit box for your executor to access at your passing. A third idea that has been created is storing the private key passcode in a secure password website, kind of like LastPass.com, if you've heard of that website. Fourth, another idea is simply sharing the private key passcode with a responsible, trustworthy person, personal person that you know. This one, though, is kind of like sharing your social security number. Be careful. Be very, very careful, because now they have your public and private key. That rollcall.com article makes a very interesting yet important point about these current times in cryptocurrency land and the courts. Laws, of course, adapt with the time. As much as people, rain on our little lawyer parade, we do try our best to stay with the times. And this topic is no different. It's no wonder just a few years back, more and more states, including here in Indiana, started passing legislation around digital assets. And specifically in my little estate world, you can now give your power of attorney, your executor, your trustee, the power to deal and handle digital assets. Though, as legislators and courts have shared, their intention was not just around these types of things like cryptocurrency, but also giving your power of attorney, executor, and trustee the ability, the authority to access things like email accounts, social media accounts, photo storage websites, etc. Therefore, as time passes, it's very likely that the court will be asked to help us navigate these digital asset powers, and specifically cryptocurrency. Actually, that rollcall.com article explains this theory of the courts having to deal with cryptocurrency by sharing a case in Connecticut where a jury had to decide whether cryptocurrency is considered securities. And that case just occurred in November of 2021, so just a mere 6 months ago. Before we wrap this episode up, I want to thank Drew for sharing some insight on cryptocurrency. Like I said at the beginning, I was very naive and frankly a little scared to take on this topic. You see, I'm not a big fan of swimming in the ocean. I got caught in a rip current when I was in middle school, so it's a big no thank you for me. But initially, this felt like I was swimming in the Bermuda Triangle. And maybe that's a little dramatic, but still. I'm glad I took on this topic. I learned a lot, and I know for a 100% fact that this whole cryptocurrency thing will hit me square in the face soon. So now I can be a better resource for my dear clients. I hope you all learned a thing or two as well. Next week's topic is on estate planning of the rich and famous. And on that episode, we're going to be talking about the well-known actress Farrah Fawcett. And I'm not sure what she was better at, her acting or doing her hair. Anyway, so we'll be talking about Farrah Fawcett next Tuesday, Legal Tea listeners. Talk to you then, and stay well.